Hi, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. It is very, very good to be here with you today. My family and I used to come here, and we went back home to Ohio a few years ago, but it's interesting how home is one place, but home is also here. And when we crossed that West Virginia line yesterday, it felt like we were coming home. And so we're just grateful to be here with you today. Thank you for having us. It's interesting the anticipation that builds up to speaking in front of a group of people and knowing that you are coming back home. And I recently, back in November, took a job at a place called Graceworks Lutheran Services. I'm working in HR there, and it's my job to deliver anniversary gifts to employees. So I'm walking back to my office. The campus is pretty big, and I start hearing live music. And I love live music. So I'm like, I'm going to continue to go in this direction. And I began to notice the tune. Now, we're in Ohio, and the tune that they were playing was Country Roads. So I turn the corner, there's 3 guys playing the guitar, a group of our residents singing, and I thought, there is no way that I'm going back to my office to work right now. I'm going to finish this song out, and I'm singing with them today. So just that anticipation building up to be here with you all today. I'm going to be sad when we have to leave. So let's just go ahead and pray before we get into God's word and what he has for us as a group of people today. Lord, it is so good to be in your presence, to remove ourselves from the circumstances that we found ourselves in, and to worship you today, to turn our focus to you. Please move in our lives. May we hear your word and see it with fresh eyes. May we come to you with open hands and willing hearts on this Mother's Day. Amen. So I brought something with me today. This is my very first journal. I was 10 years old when I began to author this book, and it used to be locked, but the lock has since fallen off because I'm going to be 40 this year, so this thing is old. And it says, don't touch this without Erin's permission. Because I was the oldest of 4, and I did not want anyone to see this private information that is in this book. But I opened it up, and apparently on June 10th of 1995, it was the worst day of my life. So that was pretty funny. I'm like, okay, so what's this going to say? What was the worst day of my life when I was 10? This is interesting. Turns out it starts like this. My mom decided to make us chocolate chip cookies. Does not sound like too bad of a day, right? But here's what happened. So with chocolate chip cookies, you have to have the base. You got to have the dough, right? And we love cookie dough in our family. We always have. And now I have carried that tradition into my family. We will eat cookie dough. I don't care if there's raw egg in it. We are eating it because it's good. It's worth the risk, right? So anyways, we decide to eat this dough, and I'm waiting for my mom to give me my portion. And I personally prefer the beater. I just like getting the beater, and so do my other siblings. So my mom has a decision to make, and me being the oldest, I thought that I deserved to have the beater. My mom thought differently on this day, and she decided to give me the wooden spoon. And that was it. I went to my room. That was the final straw. I slammed my door, and I wrote this journal entry because it was the worst day of my life. because I didn't get the beater. Now, I understand where my mom's coming from. I have children of my own, and cookie dough's cookie dough, right? I should have just been satisfied with what I had, and now I actually prefer the wooden spoon because you can get more dough, and you don't have to go through all the crevices. It's better that way. But as a 10-year-old, I experienced a couple things this day. I experienced jealousy. I was jealous of what my siblings were getting. And I was comparing what I got to what they got. I believed that what I had was of lesser value than what was given to them. And so I began to have this jealousy and comparison feeling. And what did I do with that? I got angry, so it caused a rift with my mom and my siblings. I went to the door, I slammed the door, and I wrote this journal entry. And so I was angry, I was jealous, I was comparing. It forced me as a 10-year-old to go to a space by myself and to isolate. And as I found this journal entry and I thought about that, I thought, I still find myself doing this today when I am living in jealousy and comparison. It causes a rift in relationships with the people that I'm trying to do life with, or my coworkers or my friends. And I get angry, and then I isolate. And, we've moved on as adults from these little cookie dough situations, but it grows. It's deeper as we get older, right? If you're in relationship, you've probably experienced jealousy. And I would venture to say that we are all in some kind of relationship. And we all are bombarded with comparison, aren't we? We have it in our face every single day, night and day. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you want to turn on your phone and look at what's going on, you're probably going to start comparing what's going on in your life to what's going on in others. And it's hard. And one of my biggest threats in life would probably be Pinterest. I had to get rid of it because you're literally looking at this perfect piece of what you're supposed to have. You should be able to bake this way. Your house should look like this. These people that are posting these pictures, 100%. I just don't know how they do it, but I just think they cannot have small children in their house. I love my home, but I open the door and there's literally clothes on the floor, shoes, toys everywhere. I mean, it's just craziness. I'm like, how do people keep up? How do we keep this routine? And the problem with that when I'm comparing is it makes me not want to maybe even host a small group at my house because I don't want to let someone else in to see the mess. And so this jealousy and comparison that we're stepping into all the time can force us into isolation. We're going to look at someone in history today, and her name is Hannah. And I believe that she found herself in jealousy and comparison as well. And it took her to some deep, dark places. And we're going to see what she does with that and how she gets to the other side so that we can learn from Hannah. Because we're dealing with some of these things too, and we want to know, how can we get to the other side of this? There is hope, and we're going to see it today. So Hannah is married to a man named Elkanah, and we're going to look at verse 2 together. So we're in 1 Samuel chapter 1, starting with verse 2, and we're going to go all the way through to just a little bit of chapter 2, okay? So starting with verse 2, he being Elkanah, he had 2 wives. We're going to stop right there. He had 2 wives. That right there is a good recipe for some jealousy and comparison, right? He had 2 wives, and yes, I know that this is the culture of this time. Men had multiple wives. She was probably used to seeing this in her society. However, When you are just smack dab in the middle of that, I would venture to guess that there was probably some jealousy and comparison brewing. Okay? So we're going to keep going. He had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, which is who we're going to focus on today, and the name of the other, Peninnah. Peninnah had children. Hannah had no children. There it is right there. Remember in my cookie dough story, I was thinking my siblings had something of better value. Hannah believed that Peninnah had something of better value. Also in this society, also in this culture, when you get married, it is expected of you to have children. Have children and take care of the home. This is the expectation. And she is not meeting that expectation. And she's seeing every day with the person that she's also doing life with that she is meeting that expectation, okay? So there's some stuff going on. The enemy is whispering in Hannah's ear, all right? And every year what happens is Elkanah would take his family and they would go and sacrifice to the Lord. Every year they would do this and worship. And in verse 4 it says, on the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. And as I studied this and I thought about this picture, I kind of just envisioned Hannah and Peninnah and their family sitting at a table together, a large table, and Elkanah going down the line and serving the portion to Peninnah's side. We don't know how many sons and daughters she had. And I'm picturing Hannah sitting there looking at every single person that her husband serves. And then I pictured her looking to her right and looking to her left and thinking, where's my children? I've been faithful. I come here year after year after year, and I've been patient, and I've been waiting. Where is mine? And as we evaluate our own life and the wants and desires that we might have, some good, some bad, we might be looking to our right and to our left and asking, where's mine? I've been faithful. I come here week after week. I worship the Lord. I give. I'm in a small group. I serve. Where's mine? And Elkanah loves her. When he gets to her, he gives her a double portion. But when you're not receiving what you believe that you should have, you do not see sometimes the love that is trying to be given. Isn't that true? Sometimes we can't see the love that people are trying to give us or that the Heavenly Father is trying to give us because we want something more. And we're waiting for it. Verse 6, her rival, Peninnah, the other wife, used to provoke her severely. That helps. To irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore, Hannah wept and would not eat. That makes sense, right? This is happening year after year after year after year. And Peninnah is telling her the things that Hannah already knows. She already knows that she's not able to have children. And she's being reminded by this woman that she lives with. That's a hard place to be. And Hannah is just weeping, and she can't eat the portion that her husband is presenting to her. She can't eat of it. So it says that she wouldn't eat the physical food in front of her. But when I ponder this, she was eating something that day. She was choosing to eat the words of her rival. She believed what her rival said to be true. You are unworthy. You're not stepping into your purpose or your calling. You can't have kids. You're not good enough. What are you even doing here? Who knows what she was saying? We can be mean as humans. We can be really mean. And Hannah was eating this up and allowing her to say these words because she believed it as truth. And it stopped her from receiving the love of her husband, which is causing a rift, obviously. And she sits there stuck year after year. And in verse 8, her husband, Elkanah, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? And he's just trying to give everything he has to her because he loves her. And he wants her to know that he loves her, and he just doesn't understand. Aren't I enough? That's the question he's bringing to her. And it's causing a discord in their relationship. And if we were to look on right now, Hannah does not respond. She's silent. She doesn't say anything back. And I think in her silence, there is something going on down beneath. And as Elkanah asks that question, am I not enough? I think this is where God steps in. And he whispers to her heart, I know Elkanah is asking you this, but I want to ask you this. Am I not enough? Am I not enough? As your heavenly Father, am I not enough? And here we are, bombarded day after day in our everyday lives with social media, our coworkers, our friends' friends, all of this jealousy and comparison, and these things we're trying to keep up with everybody else and have it all together and have it all. But maybe we, year after year and week after week, come here and we feel the same. And things haven't changed, and maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you have been in a dark place and you feel depressed and you don't know how to get out. And you're stuck because of these things that are wanting for your attention. And what God does in this moment for Hannah, I believe he's trying to do for us. I think he's knocking on the stone of her heart, because I do think it has become like stone. And he's asking, am I enough for you? Because you've been doing this year after year, and nothing has changed. You've tried to look to having a child for your fulfillment. You've tried to look to your marriage. You've tried to look for what you can do at home, and it is leaving you wanting, and it hasn't been enough. And I'm here, and I'm knocking at the stone of your heart, and I want you to place it in my hands and allow me to turn it into flesh. And I think God is tapping on some of our hearts today. And he's wanting us to place our hearts in his hand and allow him to take our stone heart and turn it into flesh and take it from a place of stuck and turn it into something beautiful. We need something more. We've tried all the other things. It's not working. We need you, God. And in verse 9 it says, after they had eaten and drunk at Shiloh, Hannah rose and presented herself before the Lord. I think as Elkanah asked her that question, I think that God used that question to ask the same thing of her, but he was the one speaking. And she realized, no, my husband is not enough. This is not enough. It's not working. It's been the same thing year after year after year. It's not enough. I need you, God. And she came from this place of weeping and being stuck, and she found that last bit of strength that she had within her, and she rose, and she presented herself to the Lord. It's time. It's time for us to get to a place like Hannah where we've been spinning the wheels and it's not working and it's not enough and we're stuck, and we need to have the strength to rise up and present ourselves to the Lord. She did not care who was watching her. She didn't care what else she had to do that day. She was ready in that moment to answer that knock that was on her heart. And she rose and she presented herself to the Lord. That is our first step. If you find yourself in this place today, your first step is to rise and give yourself to Jesus. He is the only one who will bring the satisfaction that we are so desperately wanting. And if your heart is quickening right now, it might just be that he is tapping on your heart, asking you to come and present yourself to him. So she presents herself to the Lord, and she is weeping to him. She's not holding anything back. She's ready to step forward and be done with her old life and to move forward in the fulfillment that only Jesus can give. This jealousy and comparison was stealing her joy. It was stealing her ability to have a full life. And she was done with that. And she was ready to lay it all out before him. And she was praying, God, she was telling him, this is what I want. I want a child so bad. Please give me a child. God, if you give me a child, I will give him to you, and he can be a priest, and I'll raise him up to follow you. She was making these promises. She was just telling God, and that's what he wants. He wants us to just tell him. And you might be thinking, oh, that's just a small thing, what I came in here with today. If you're thinking about it, it's big enough to bring it to the Lord. If you're thinking about it right now, it's big enough. And it's time to walk out of here today without it weighing you down any longer. It's time to present it to the Lord. And she's just telling God all of these things, and the priest is there, and he sees her. In verse 12, it says, as she continued praying before the Lord, Eli, the priest, observed her mouth. Hannah was praying silently, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli begins to tell her, stop doing this. Stop making a drunken mess of yourself. Put away your wine. But Hannah answered, no, my lord, I am a woman deeply troubled. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I've been pouring out my soul before the Lord. That is how much she was laying it all out there for God. She appeared crazy to the priest. And we are so consumed, I am so consumed with how others view me, that sometimes it holds me back from coming to God the way that I really am feeling inside. And if we are to a place where we are no longer caring what the people around us are thinking because I'm a leader, what will they think? Or what will my family think if I go up? When we get to a place of this stuck in the rock bottom, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. We know we need Jesus, and that's where we're going to go. And it doesn't matter what we look like. It is time to pour it all out. It doesn't matter what the person to our right or to our left is thinking. This is not about them. This is about you and your relationship with Jesus. He's knocking. He's knocking. So she rises up. She presents herself to the Lord. She pours it all out. And then what did she do? She's talking to someone else. She is talking to Eli. She says in verse 16, "Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman. Please don't think of me as worthless." She's been told this for so long that she thinks that everybody else is thinking she's worthless too. She needs to clarify, please don't think I'm worthless. I'm coming to the last place I know to go to. I'm coming to Jesus. Please don't turn me away. Please don't think I'm a worthless woman, for I have been speaking out of my great anxiety all this time. She tells someone. She tells Eli about what she's going through. And this is a hard step. This is a step that I would like to disregard. If I lay it out before the Lord and He can take care of it, that's good enough. And it is good, and we do need to do that. But this next piece is very important. We've got to share what is going on in our lives with someone else because it's going to hold us accountable. It's going to show that we are in a place of need, and when we choose to turn to Jesus, there's going to be a miracle on the other side of that. And if we tell someone else, they're going to see the miracle. And we need to witness that as a group of people. Because in this day of technology and where everything is done for us, miracles feel like they don't exist sometimes. And if we're not sharing what's going on in our life, we are robbing someone else of seeing the miracle. We've got to be people who are sharing what's going on so that then we can share the miracle and people can see that fruit and that they will want it too. Because we are a world that is desperately in need. And people need to see, well, who did you turn to when you were going through that? I turned to Jesus. And He fulfilled my need. And He brought me to the other side. That is what Hannah did. When I was thinking about this great anxiety, my dad brought up an old song to me called "I Cast My Cares Upon You." Super old 90s worship song. And it goes, I'm not going to sing it, but I cast all my cares upon you. I lay all of my burdens down at your feet. And as I thought about that, Hannah's talking about her great anxiety, and we're talking about how she poured it all out to the Lord. How do we do that? How do we pour it out? How do we cast our cares on the Lord? How do we do that? And I thought of an analogy, which was interesting because it was a fishing analogy, and I don't fish. I'm very squirmish when it comes to the worms and putting them on the hook, and it's pretty taxing even though you're sitting there because you cast it out and then you don't catch anything, and it comes back and the hook is empty. So it was a weird analogy for God to give me, but as I was thinking about casting my anxieties on God, I thought about what it looks like to cast the line. And if you are a fisher or you've seen anyone fishing, that's what you do. You cast the line. And we're not really sure where it's going to land. The wind might take it. It might get stuck on a branch. But we cast it out in hopes that we're going to catch something, right? You don't fish in hopes that you go home with nothing. You fish in hopes that you're going to catch something. And as I think about this with my relationship with God and the anxieties that I carry, casting it on him is much like fishing. I'm telling him what I'm feeling. And I'm saying, I'm giving this to you. God, I don't know where it's going to land. And I don't know what's going to come back. But I know that if it's from you, there's going to be something good on the other end. But what happens then when we do cast it on the Lord and the issue's not solved? And we cast out the line and it does come back empty. He wants us to cast it out again. And then again. And then again. Until you do catch something. We are to be faithful in casting the line. God is looking for us to be faithful. Because here's the thing, jealousy and comparison is going to creep up again. These feelings, these anger, this not feeling good enough, it's going to come up again. You cast it. You cast it on the Lord, and you're faithful in casting, and he will bring a miracle because that is what he does. And Eli answers her in verse 17, go in peace. Well, when you have anxiety and you have depression and your need hasn't been met yet, it's hard to go in peace. But she knew that she was there for one reason and one reason alone, and it was to restore her relationship with Jesus. And because she did that, she could go in peace. And guess what? Has it been the same for you year after year and week after week, and you have been feeling stuck? You can go in peace today. You can go in peace. May it be so. But it starts with a choice. It starts with a choice to realize that nothing else is working and that you need Jesus. Because he is the one who will fulfill all of our needs. He is the only one who will satisfy. So, he tells her to go in peace in verse 17. The God of Israel grant the petition you have made to him. And she said, let your servant find favor in your sight. Then the woman went to her quarters, ate and drank with her husband. She was able to eat and drink, and her countenance was sad no longer. She left a changed woman. Nothing about her circumstance has changed. She still is not pregnant, but she leaves because she went to the one that she was really there for. She brought her request to God. She asked him for a child, but she left with what she was really there for, which was restoration with Jesus, which was restoration with God. And we need restoration with Jesus. And if we do that, we can leave here in peace because we have left with the one thing that we know will satisfy, and that is a restored relationship with him. And it says in verse 19, she's with her husband. They rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord. That is amazing because 10 verses earlier, she rose all by herself. In verse 9, it says, Hannah rose and presented herself before the Lord. And 10 verses later, it says, they rose early in the morning and worshiped before the Lord. They went together. And a lot of the times when we hear things, we're like, hey, you should be listening to this. You need to rise up and present yourself to the Lord. This message is for you. No, it is for me. This message is for me. It's for you. It's about you rising up and presenting yourself before the Lord. And you are a living miracle when you do this. And people are going to be drawn to that. And you're no longer going to have to rise alone. You're going to get to rise with others. And we need each other. We live in a world that is remote, and Amazon, don't go to the grocery store, just do it all by yourself, you can do it. We can't. We can't. And it is so much easier to rise with someone else. And because she chose to rise by herself all those years ago, she now was able to rise with her husband together. Their relationship was restored because her relationship with God was restored. They went and worshiped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife, Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. In due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, I have asked him of the Lord. She did have a son. And Samuel grows up to do amazing things. He's a priest. He anoints the first king. And then he anoints King David, who is a man after God's own heart. Why is that? Because Hannah chose to rise and present herself to the Lord. This affected the trajectory of not only her own life, but the life of her future child. That is a legacy. That is a legacy. That is something worth living for. And it says that the Lord remembered her. That's interesting. The Lord remembered her. Well, did he forget her? That's the question that I thought when I was reading this. No, he didn't forget her. He was there the whole time. He was there through it all. And he remembered her the whole time. But isn't it interesting when we choose to follow Jesus and our lives are renewed and restored, how it does feel like God remembered me, but he's been there the whole time. And he's knocking on our hearts just like he did Hannah's, and he's just waiting for you to remember him. That he's there, and he cares. He does. The Lord remembers you. I want you to know that today. The Lord remembers you. And he sees you. And he doesn't want you to leave here today in the same place. He's there knocking. It's time to rise up. It's time to rise up. Give it to God. The other stuff doesn't work. It's not working anymore. Jealousy and comparison rob us of experiencing a full life. It robs us of our joy. I want to share a verse with you from John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. If you feel like things have been stolen from you, if you feel like dreams have died, if you feel like things have been destroyed in your life, Jesus is here and he's ready to give you life abundantly. He's here to restore your joy. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And there is no other way to the Father except through Jesus. And we can try all these other things. Nothing else is going to sustain and nothing else will work. He wants to give you life abundantly.